Peace, and welcome to another episode of the Quranic Remedies, where we spend about 15 minutes exploring a page from the Quran together and seeing how we can apply the verses to our lives. Hopefully, with God's permission, it helps us heal our brain, body, mind, and soul. So today we'll be reading from chapter 4, The Women, from verses 66 to 74. A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. I seek refuge to God from the accursed devil. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful. ولو أن كتبنا عليهم أن اقتلوا أنفسكم أو اخرجوا من دياركم ما فعلوه إلا قليل منهم ولو أنهم فعلوا ما يوعظون به لكان خيرا لهم وأشد تثبيتا. Had we decreed for them, kill yourselves or leave your homes, they would not have done it except for a few of them. But had they done what they were instructed to do, it would have been better for them, a firmer confirmation. وَإِذًا لَآتَيْنَاهُمْ مِنْ لَدُنَّا أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. And we would have given them from our presence a rich compensation. وَلِهَدَيْنَاهُمْ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. And we would have guided them on a straight path. وَمَنْ يُطِعِ اللَّهَ وَرَسُولَهُ والرسول فأولئك مع الذين أنعم الله عليهم من النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. Whoever obeys God and the Messenger, these are with those whom God has blessed. Among the prophets and the sincere and the martyrs and the upright, excellent are those as companions. ذلك فضل من الله وكفى بالله عليما. That is the grace from God. God suffices as a knower. يا أيها الذين آمنوا خذوا حذركم فانفروا ثباتا أو انفروا جميعا. O you who believe, take your precautions and mobilize in groups or mobilize altogether. وَإِنَّ مِنْكُمْ لِمَنْ لَبْطَئِنَّ فَإِنْ أَصَابَتْكُمْ مُصِيبَةٌ قَالَ قَدْ أَنْعَمَ اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ إِذْ لَمْ أَكُنْ مَعَهُمْ شَهِيدًا. And among you is who lags behind. Then when a calamity befalls you, he says, God has favored me, that I was not martyred with them. وَلِئِنْ أَصَابَكُمْ فَضْلٌ مِّنَ اللَّهِ لِيَقُولُنَّ كَأَنَّ لَمْ تَكُنْ بَيْنَكُمْ وَبَيْنَهُ مَوَدَّةٌ يَا لَيْتَنِي كُنْتُ مَعَهُمْ فَأَفُوزُ فَوْزًا عَظِيمًا. But when some bounty from your God comes to you, he says, as if there's no affection existed between you and him, if only I had been with them, I would have achieved a great victory. فَلْيُقَاتِلْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ الَّذِينَ يَشْرَوْنَ الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ وَمَنْ يُقَاتِلْ فِي سَبِيلِ اللَّهِ فَيُقْتَلْ أَوْ يَغْلُبْ فَسَوْفَ نُؤْتِيهِ أَجْرًا عَظِيمًا. Let those who sell the life of this world for the hereafter fight in the cause of God. Whoever fights in the cause of God and then is killed or achieves victory, we will grant him a great compensation. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. God the Great said the truth. These verses here, they're now changing a little bit more on regards to how God wants us to address certain things in life. Now, we also have to recognize that the verses here in this chapter, we've been talking quite extensively about hypocrisy and hypocrites. Now, there is a verse that we did discuss in chapter 2 in regards to the children of Israel, how they were ordered to kill themselves because they did take the golden calf as a deity and they started to worship it. So Moses ordered them on behalf of God for them to kill themselves. And if they killed themselves, they did end up dying, God has resurrected them. So it wasn't more so of a command to show that God is cruel or oppressive, but rather it was a command to see if there was a leap of faith that needed to be taken by the children of Israel for them to see if truly God is on their side or not, or if they trust God or not. Now, unfortunately, the majority of the children of Israel opted not to kill themselves. And just like how here, God is saying to the believers, to people who claim that they're believers, that if God decreed to kill themselves or leave your homes, the majority will not do. So we recognize here in these verses that religion sometimes goes as far as the person's comfort. Yet we understand that loyalty in serving somebody or serving somebody or an entity, it requires for you to go out of your comfort zone. This is something that is very prevalent in the Quran. Yes, God is not meaning for you to go into harsh conditions, and the religion is not a difficult religion. But if you find an opportunity where you can put your comfort to the side for a little bit and to strive for God, knowing that you're going to get rewarded, and that comfort that you have left now temporarily is going to come back to you tenfold, then this is something that makes sense because it's such a profitable trade. Me having to endure a little bit of discomfort for 10 minutes and then going into bliss for the rest of my life, I would choose that 10 minutes of discomfort every day of the week. It's just because it's something that clearly makes sense. But there is something else that is revealing in this verse where God is making it very apparent that the prophet himself would not know the people around him and what they would do when things are decreed. So there was a lot of hypocrisy that was present. And there are a lot of people that may seem that they are actual believers, but yet when push comes to shove, they're not ready. They're not willing to stand up. They'll rather give you excuses on why not to do what needs to be done. Or they also sometimes start to twist and turn with whatever God has already given them just for them to escape the actual clear instructions. And this is also going to be presented to us in chapter 8. When the truth has been apparent that they need to leave their homes, a lot of people started to argue against it, only due to the fact that it's because of comfort. The human being enjoys the comfort that he gets, these blessings that we get from God. But these blessings and these comforts that we get from God, it should not be taken for granted. Not only that we're going to die and we leave them behind, but sometimes you need to give that up to get something that is better. And to get something better that is promised to you in the hereafter, but this sometimes occurs here in life. There's a lot of people that they find themselves in a situation where they are terrified of what the alternative would be, which they don't know what the alternative is. But they recognize that as soon as they let go, their life has become better because they've taken a leap of faith. They put trust in God that whatever step that they're going to take, they're taking it because of God, and yet they found themselves in a better position. This is also present in another verse where God states that those that immigrate in the way of God, they will find a lot of blessings in the land because they've left for God and his messenger. Now, in these verses here that we see in chapter 4, God and his messenger, in that term, has been used often. But the messenger is somebody who is telling you, communicating to you what God wants from you. It is not the messenger himself communicating from his own will as if they're two separate entities. Rather, for you to understand what God wants you to do, this is why you need to obey the messenger. And the messenger himself, as a human being, he has certain things that needs to be done where he requires your help. The more you help the messenger by what he's ordering you to do, this is going to be beneficial for the society and for the community moving forward. It's only because that individual, he has been tasked by God for him to achieve what he needs to achieve. And he's going to achieve it with or without your help. So when God states that in the following verses, that if you did listen and if you did obey the command of God, even if it's as scary as killing each other or leaving your homes or leaving things behind because the order has been cleared, that you will really become extremely rich. Rich here in this world for being able to actually present that loyalty you preach about. And then in the hereafter, you're going to be presented with such an extreme price that you would do it 100 times every time you had a chance to live on this earth again. And this is where you truly find that straight path, the path where the devil is trying to push you away. So when the devil recognizes that you're willing to do a sacrifice for God, and it's a bigger than life type of sacrifice, he is going to give you 100 excuses on why you shouldn't do it. And it's very easy for somebody that is going to produce a task or finish something for God, that for them to kind of push back away from it only due to the fact that it's out of their comfort zone. And God states here that whoever obeys God and the messenger, he didn't say whoever obeys God and obeys the messenger like a verse that we said earlier, because we've already presented in chapter 4 that God states that these are the limits of God and the messenger, and whoever transgresses the limits, which was in singular, it wasn't the limits of both, it was the limits of God. So when you obey the messenger, you're obeying God because the messenger is telling you what God wants you to hear. And at that point, God is telling you the best of people that have lived in this world. These are the prophets, the sincere, the martyrs, and the upright. Those are the individuals that God tells you that these are the excellent type of friends and companions that you should have. Obviously, we're not going to be among the prophets on earth. There are no more prophets for us to witness or to see. But you could see the sincere and you could see the upright. These are people that are easy to distinguish. It's just because it's not their words that truly signify and tell us who they are, but rather it's the actions and the seeds that they produce. Sometimes you find yourself around individuals where their actions just seem that it's out of place only because of how sincere they are. Their sincerity seems like it's fake for the other individuals. It's just because that other individuals have yet to understand the concept of love. Love is the ability to sacrifice without expecting anything in return. Here, the difference is when we're trading with God and we're sacrificing with God, our reward has already been given. And many of the believers, when they're sacrificing for God, it's not so much of the material rewards that they're promised, but the promise of being among the righteous that are capable of getting close to God. That is truly the reward that a believer seeks. Is that love and that contentment and that attachment to God, and always being able to turn back to God is truly why that person strives to be who he is, as what God is telling us in this blessed Quran. These are things that are very driven by emotions and feelings that you do get in a relationship. And God is constantly telling us about these emotions and feelings that individuals get, because he's also describing to us the other side, how somebody's going to feel humiliated, how somebody's going to feel regretful, how somebody's going to feel upset and angry at others. These are feelings that we do not enjoy in this worldly life. And God is warning us of these feelings for you to be overcome with them for the rest of your life if you end up in hell. But on the positive side, we want the feelings that we do enjoy in this world. That feeling of fulfillment, that feeling of being part of something that's bigger than you, the feeling of helping another, the feeling of joy, the feeling of sincerity, the feeling of desire, but proper purity. These are things that we would be given in heaven. Those are the true prizes of you being in that state forever. And the only way that you achieve it is the same way that you achieve it here, is being connected to your God. The people around you, they can help you achieve these things by them themselves chasing it, or they can pull you away into eventually despair and regret and tragedy. This life, this worldly life, is a tragedy. And this is something that is present. But God's blessings to us is the ones that are finding themselves realizing that this world is not the end all and be all, but rather it's the world that you've been promised, and you fulfilling that word that God has given you and fulfilling that sacrifice because you truly believe in that promise. So you would not have a problem leaving your home when God tells you to leave. You have no problem disconnecting from somebody because God told you to disconnect from him. You have no problem going fighting in the way of God. And this is something that we have noticed as well, again, that God wants us also to strategize in the way that we strive. God is telling us to take our precautions. So yes, we are trusting in God, but we also have to do our part. It's not blind trust to a certain degree, because it's all in truth. God created this world in truth. If I am getting a report that someone is spying on me and they're watching my technology and what I'm writing, and yet I'm planning against that person on that said technology, then at that point I'm shooting myself in the foot. I cannot make these errors and assume that God is going to rescue me when I am putting myself in danger on purpose. So we do have to take our precautions, and we do have to also work on preserving ourselves. And where we do not see and where we cannot control, that's where we trust God. We cannot understand the outcomes of our decisions, but we can truly put the effort for us to not find ourselves in a position where we are lost and where we are finding ourselves stuck in a spot or a corner where it's difficult. God will rescue us because he promised us to do so. And then there is the other concepts of, as said, hypocrites. Those individuals that you truly think that they're among you, but they're always planning in a way to preserve themselves rather than preserve the community or the mission. So when they're not with you, when something happens because you took that leap of faith and you went into the desert, you went into the life in a way where you don't have your comfort, you just took your bare minimum and you started to strive with God. And these individuals did say that they believe in you and they want to be part of that and they're with you. But yet when you're going into these missions, they're not present and something bad happens to you. You get arrested, you get shot, you get killed, you lose something that's important, something difficult happens, a calamity. They will take that as a blessing. Like, hey, I was not among them. That they believe that God has rescued them because they didn't go out and striving. But on the flip side, they're not happy when something does good happen because they wish that they were among you. So these individuals are so self-centered that they're just talking about themselves. It was never about the relationship with God. Obviously, you're going to strive in ways with God where it's not going to pan out the way that you wanted because the odds are against you. But you losing, which some people would assume is a loss, is actually a victory. As God states in the final verse, that the people who truly sold this worldly life, that they have absolutely given what they can for God. And the ultimate sacrifice is if God gives you 50 years on this earth or 60 years on the earth, you took 30 of those years or you took 20 of those years and said, God, I'll give it to you. I don't want to spend those 20, 30 years on earth. I'm willing to lay my life out for you. That on itself is a victory. So as God states in chapter 9, They're both a victory. Those are the husnain. Those are the two good sides, either victory or either death. And I understand as individuals in this day and age, they cannot understand that level of sacrifice. Yet when it comes down to their governments and to their countries, they have absolutely no idea. They have absolutely no problem to calling these individuals as heroes, as people who laid the ultimate sacrifice for their country and for their flag and for their own small population, however small their population is. But for somebody to do that same sacrifice for God, where it's not even needed with God, but because the person has done it from their heart, these individuals are now deemed extremists, or that they have individuals that, or they're problematic, or they're against society, or they're driven by fanaticism. But they're actually driven by love. They're driven by the desire to actually serve their Lord with everything that they have. So laying their life out is easy, because it's whatever pain that you're going to endure in a fight or in a war, and it's difficult to endure physical pain sometimes, but it's so short-lived that as soon as you pass away, that pain is gone, because you're no longer attached to this physical body that gives you the pain. And then God promises you that you taste death, but then you live forever, here in this worldly life and then in the hereafter. These prices, people hear it, but they just, because they cannot experience it and they need to trust God on how amazing these prices is, that's where that faith, that blind faith comes in. You don't know how it's going to feel in heaven. You can't even imagine hell for more than 5 seconds. Let's go through all the verses about how people are going to be in hell and try to apply that to yourself right now. How much can you endure of that torment? Hot water boiling water coming down at you, or you're drinking boiling water, or your skin is boiling, like your skin is burning, or madness in your head. Now imagine going through that for 30 minutes. Imagine that for an hour. The human brain cannot comprehend that type of humiliating punishment, where you don't want anybody to see you in that state. However beautiful you think you are, you're going to constantly keep getting disfigured. However smart you think you are, there's no escape for you. However strong you think you are, you're going to sit humiliated crying where nobody's going to save you. But this is not for 5-10 minutes until you die, because there's no death. But on the other side, it's very easy for you to imagine how heaven's going to be like, because a human being, that's what they're attracted to. That comfort, that love, that happiness, that solitude, that peace. That's why it's truly a religion that achieves peace, even though in this world that's chaos. But the interesting part is, however you imagine and whatever you imagine of heaven, it's not going to actually give you that experience that you're going to experience. We can tell you about islands and things on this world where it's beautiful, but until you go there and experience it yourself, it's very difficult for you to actually perceive it. And that's the truth about heaven. So whatever you lay down for God in the name of God, it's always going to be worth it. It's going to be a lot more worth it than you can even imagine at this point. So sacrifice with what you have. God did tell you to take your precautions. So don't be impulsive. Don't be stupid in what you do, thinking that it's for God. You have to be somebody who's strategic, and you have to be somebody who's willing to hear. Because reason is the thing that makes you escape idolatry. Hearing is the thing that is going to allow you to understand your curriculum and what you need to do. That's why God states that they do not reason, nor do they listen. But you have to reason first before using your ears. And when you start to use your ears, then you know what you need to do. Because that's how you're going to hear the commandments of God. Your reason, your inductive reasoning, is for you to reach God. So are you at the level of understanding what God is saying to you? Or are you still searching for God? And with that said, truly hope you guys are enjoying these. All praise to our Lord, the Lord of the worlds. Peace be upon you.